All right, welcome back to another episode of the R&R cast. Today I'm stoked because we have the drummer from Maryland's best export, better than crabs, man. Cinder freaking Road, dude. How are you doing, man?
Great, man. I've never been introduced that way. I like that better than crabs. It's pretty good.
Well, dude, I mean it, man. I'm a DMV kid. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. So I mean, I remember hearing you guys. I mean, probably when I was like 11, like popping up in the local scene.
God,
I love the records, man. So I'm super excited to talk about the band.
cool.
So admittedly, I don't know the full story of sort of how you guys formed. So I'd love to just start back at the beginning and hear about, even back in the plunge era, sort of how everything started.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty cool story, especially for me because I was a cello player in school. I played the cello, and I always liked the drums, but I never really played. And then when I was in high school, I joined the marching band in my school on drums, and a bunch of the other guys in the drum line sort of like took me under their wing. And I was going to a party at our the captain of drumline's house, and one of my other friends literally kidnapped me and took me to Mike Rocco's house, the lead singer of Plunge and Cinder Road, and had me audition for this band called Plunge. And I was like, just a garage band. Like, what? This is going to be. What's the point? And they liked me enough, and I joined the band like right around my 16th birthday, I guess it was. And we sort of immediately signed a contract with Starley Entertainment Group. It's a booking agency based in like Towson, Maryland, but they book the entire East Coast. They've
Yeah.
got clubs that they book all up and down the East Coast, and so we started playing gigs, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is just so strange. It was totally new world for me. Um, and that just grew and grew and grew to the point that we were playing like 250 shows a year while I was a senior in high school. It was
That's
ridiculous. And
awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, I was great. It was great. And so we went and did some showcases for different labels. There were a couple of deals that didn't really turn into anything. And then ultimately, we had signed a deal with EMI. We were actually one of the first bands to sign with Audio Nest, which is like a division. Audio Nest Caroline is a division of EMI. And we immediately went out on tour with Daughtry, Chris Daughtry, after he left American Idol, or when he got kicked off, however you wanted to put it. So his first tour was our first tour after signing with EMI. It was actually crazy. We had the name Plunge for a long time. I mean, that band started, God, it must have been like 1996, I think, is when Mike and Chris sort of started that group.
Yeah, yeah.
But after we signed to EMI, they did the research to make sure that we could have the name. And there was another band out of like some blues band or jazz band out of New Orleans that had established a year prior to Mike and Chris, and they
Yeah.
were not willing to sell the name, so we had to rename the band right before we left for that Daughtry tour. So it was nuts. Like we got off the plane in LAX on January 7th, I think it was, and or 27th, something like that. And we didn't even have CDs printed yet because we had just settled on the name Cinder Road. So it was a whirlwind, a total whirlwind at that point. And then it was like Candlebox after Daughtry, and we did some dates with Puddle of Mud and Alice Cooper, and it went on and on and on.
I mean, dude, you're hitting all my favorites, man. I love Daughtry. I literally saw him like 5 days ago at Incarceration, but so
Oh
Superhuman
wow,
wasn't even out yet, right? When you were doing the Daughtry tour, that was a little bit after, yeah.
yeah, it was. So we had recorded the album. It hadn't been pressed. Like I said, we settled on the name Cinder Road. It was like, honest to God, I think it was like the night before we left for that Daughtry tour, like the night before we boarded the plane. So then they had to go and like obviously print everything. So yeah, no, it hadn't been released. It hadn't been released, and that was a real miss for us because that tour sold out in seconds. Like every show, I think they weren't sure how Daughtry was going to do at first because that was
Hmm.
like his very first tour after the show. And so they had booked all these like 400 seat venues, and it was like boom, boom, boom. They were just selling out. And within a couple of weeks of that tour, they had to sort of rebook and book larger venues. And it was great because we were traveling around. You know, we'd wake up in the morning outside the venue, and you'd see a line in the snow. I mean, it's January, it's cold. Like lines in the snow all the way down like 2 blocks. It was nuts for us. It was absolutely crazy. But yeah, we didn't get the CDs until halfway through that tour. And then start selling them. So that was a miss,
I
but
can't even
still it was.
imagine first tour selling out with Daughtry, man. I mean, that's for a young band. What was that even like? Like, could you guys like even comprehend sort of what was happening?
Like I said, being some kid playing cello, and then picking up a set of drumsticks, getting kidnapped to audition for a band. I mean, for me, it was so crazy. Like it was impossible to sort of comprehend. Mike and Chris had been playing guitar, for years, and they knew they wanted to be rock stars, but that wasn't even on my radar.
Mhm.
Not even close. So when I went and auditioned for this band, I thought this is silly. And I think we played like they had me play Rainbow in the Dark. I I think I played how else did I play? They had me play like 3 songs. I didn't even know. I was sitting behind a drum kit that wasn't mine and just playing along with a couple of kids in a basement. And so it was not on my radar at all. And then to find myself in Los Angeles, I was just looking through the timeline before this call just to sort of get myself straight because it all happened so quick and so crazy. It's hard to
Yeah.
sort of piece it together.
No, I mean it's just amazing to even think about. And on the Daughtry tour, were you still ever playing plunge songs, or was it all Cinder Road songs off the record at that point?
There were some songs that were quote unquote plunge songs that still made the Superhuman record. I mean, a bunch of those tracks were from our little independent release prior to signing with EMI. So yeah, there were still plunge songs that we were playing. And then the first single, Get In Get Out, obviously that was fully a Cinder Road tune. That was the one that was on the radio first. And so yeah, it was. I guess it was kind of a mix. Like, and our fans that were coming out that had knew us before we signed to EMI, they would always ask to hear songs from before when we were Plunge. But it was the
Hmm.
same band, it was just different name.
Dude, I mean that's awesome. It's so cool that that you even were able to like I'm not over the young band aspects. You guys probably my age when like it's just I couldn't even imagine doing the Daughtry thing. But so
It
after
was
sorry, continue.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, where'd you go after Superhuman? I mean, after the Daughtry tour, was it Puddle of Mud next, or was it you said Candlebox, right?
I think Candlebox was right after Daughtry, if I remember correctly. I think we went right to Candlebox, and we did a couple of tours with them. Um, we were also at the time we were part of the AFE, the Armed Forces Entertainment Network. It's like
Okay.
USO, but like USO is like acts like Madonna. They're not getting paid, but they're staying in 4-star hotels. And then
Yeah.
AFE is like you stay on base, but they give you a stipend. So smaller acts like us would do the AFE tours, and they were great because we would go and we would perform with or perform for the troops. But then after the show was over, you go and you party with them, which was a
That's
lot of
so
fun.
awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was terrific. So we did a couple of those. We brought I don't want to I feel like we did. I can't remember if we did any shows with Candlebox through AFE or not. I know that we did. Um, Mike had joined before we became Cinder Road. Mike had joined SR-71, and he was playing bass for SR-71, and um, another Baltimore band, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And we ended up going with them to Japan to play military bases in and around Japan, um, which was also really super cool. That was another one of those little tours in there that I had forgotten about. But at the time, I don't even think we were Cinder Road at the time. I think that was before. I think that was pre Cinder Road time. And then I mentioned Candlebox too. We've been with them. It's so hard. It's so hard for me to piece it all together. Who was when?
Man, I mean, it's that's
Candlebox happened. Puddle of Mud happened. Alice Cooper happened. We were out with Hurt for a while. There was a band called the Sick Puppies that we were
oh yeah, of course,
paired with
of
for a bit.
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're Australian, aren't they?
Um, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, on all these national tours, do you guys make it back to Baltimore, like Soundstage or Ram's Head, or did you play any of those like any of those clubs on these tours?
Yeah, like whenever we would come, if routing would, bring us back through Baltimore or through Maryland, we would play. Um, we used to play at the Record Theater a lot in Towson.
Oh,
That
sure,
was like
yeah.
our club because we lived so close to them. So it was like we would do a Christmas show there every single year on like I think it was the 23rd of December. So we would try and make it a thing to like come back and play that show. And we did that with Candlebox a couple times, or at least once. Um, yeah, those were always fun shows too, because that room was what was it like 800? I think it was like 800
Yeah, yeah.
people in there, and we would always sell that show out. It was a lot of fun, and it's
That's
friends and family. It's always nice to see when you've been out on the road for like months and months on end. It was always nice to just come home and see everybody that
well,
sent you on your way.
absolutely. Well, I imagine too, it was like when every time you'd come back, you had more and more like, cool new tours under your belt, or you'd done more and more. So it was like, you had so much to catch up on, right?
Right? Yeah, yeah. Lots of just fun experiences and moments where you catch yourself like taking stock and going, "Man, this I didn't expect this."
Yeah. So 3 years after Superhuman, you guys released of the two, my personal favorite, Damage Control. How do you think I sort of hear it in the records how the sound kind of changed, but I want to hear it from you sort of like how would you say the Cinder Road sound kind of evolved into the second record?
So those songs, we never really had an opportunity to write those songs as a band. So most of the time, because of the time and how we were getting pushed to sort of produce, and you don't want to, we had already missed a step with the album not being available when we started the tour. So Mike would go and do like writing sessions with other artists, and they would record demos. Sometimes those demos they would track, and they would use those tracks for the recording. So I think most of the tracks on. I can't see this. Hang on a second, my
Oh,
computer's
dude, you're
beeping.
all good. You're all good. If I had I got the Superhuman CD here. I can't find Damage Control, so I don't have the track list handy right now, but
No, yeah, I'm not even. I'm just my Zoom is freaking out. Okay, there we go. Can you still see me?
yeah, yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. Yeah, so no, most of those songs were actually tracked by Isaac Carpenter. It was from was it Duff McKagan's uh, Loaded,
Yeah, yeah.
and so he wrote those drum tracks, and Mike would come back with either the demos or the finished tracks, whatever, and then we would learn the parts, because we're obviously playing them on the road. So um, and he's a great drummer. And so I had my work cut out for me. While we're on tour, while we're on the road, it's like you got to learn these new songs, and then go out and put them on stage.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite to play or a favorite to hear off of Damage Control?
Well, so on Damage Control, Save Me, I actually tracked that. So that's me
Oh,
playing
sweet.
on Save Me, which is obviously my favorite since I played it.
Definitely, definitely.
And that was fun. That was a really fun experience too for me, because being in the studio for that one, we had been in the studio before. I had recorded, the stuff prior, and I would just remember, like, for that particular track, of course, I'm in the room, and we recorded that or I recorded those tracks at with a guy Scott Spellbring, and I forget the name of his studio now down in Virginia. I don't know. I can't remember what it is, but
I
at
should
any
I
rate,
should know. I'm the Virginia guy here. I should know. I'm embarrassed. I don't know either.
he had this great house up on top of this mountain down there in Virginia, and he had a live room, which is where we track the drums, and it was just this huge, like vaulted ceiling, 2 level, 2 story room. And of course, all the guys are in the booth, and I did, like one take, and they're like, okay, well, you're playing too much. They always wanted me to sort of play less. Less is more. The whole less is more
Yeah, yeah.
attitude. And so I was getting a little frustrated. And I feel like you can kind of hear that if you listen to the track, especially if you listen to the drum tracks isolated. Like if you just listen to the drum tracks, you can hear my frustration because I'm beating the hell out of those drums, man. I was hitting so hard that day. Um, but I really like how it turned out because I feel like that track now has, of course, I have a personal connection to it since I played it, but there's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in that track.
Definitely. No,
And so
it's
it's also one of my favorite ones to play live. I really enjoy playing it live as well because I sort of dig back into that experience in the studio when I play it.
it's so funny you say that less is more thing because it's not the first time I've heard. And this, I'm a drummer, so this hurts me as much as it hurts you. But this is not the first time I've heard kind of bands from like from with your guys' sound, that have these drummers that can just tear up the kit and want to add more intricate stuff, like having to hold back. I mean, I think about Nickelback. I mean, they've got Daniel Adair, like probably one of the best modern drummers ever. You can play, whatever prog, anything they want to throw at him, but he's kind of got to hold it back a little bit. I mean, I'm sure that was probably a little bit annoying for you.
I mean, that was always my thing because again, remember, like I told you, I'd never had any delusions of wanting to be like a rock star or even playing a rock band. It just wasn't
Yeah.
on my radar. The music I listened to growing up was not rock. I wasn't listening to 80s hair bands at all. I was listening to Michael Jackson, Genesis, Phil Collins, and then in high school, I just had a really sort of eclectic mix of music that I was listening to, and with the little bit of rock that was mixed into that, it was not like that didn't really shape my sound. So I was really impressed with like Dennis Chambers, and don't ever tell Dennis Chambers that less is more. So, listening to music like that, and then when I first started playing drums, that's the kind of stuff that I was like trying to play to, or playing to, and that's what I was sort of working on. So when I joined Plunge and we were playing like 80s hair metal, 80s hair bands, just
Yeah.
rock and even like popular
Yeah.
popular stuff. Um, I was always overplaying. Right, I know that I was always overplaying. I think the guys in the band kind of hated that, but I learned to
Well,
tone it down and just slow and steady and four on the floor.
yeah, well, maybe I'm biased because I'm on, your side here, but I think it's always better to have somebody that can outplay, stuff than somebody that, you need to sort of tell to play more. I think that's never a bad problem to have. If you have to dial your drummer back, that means you got
Right.
a good drummer.
Well, and I also like thinking about drums in like more melodically than just you know giving the beat to bang your head to.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think of I guess I think of drum parts more like a more linear and more like a melody than just rhythm.
absolutely, absolutely. So on the drum topic, while we're here, what are you playing live these days, or what'd you play back in the sort of on the Daughtry tour in that era? What were you bringing out with you?
So after the Daughtry tour, when we were out with Candlebox, I had signed a deal with Mapleworks, which I was looking to see if they're still around. I think that they're not around anymore.
Yeah,
Um, but they built me a kit, and it's the same kit that I still use. I love it because I designed it. Um, but it's a 24 by 18 kick, uh, 12 by 14, or I should say 14 by 12. So it's like a little shallow
mm,
rack tom, and then it's 16 by 14 floor tom. And I wanted something that was going to I wanted something a little more boomy than what I was playing at the time. I had a Mapleworks kit. It was sort of like a stock Mapleworks, 22-inch bass. I think it was like a 10, 12, 14, three toms. And I just wanted something a little more boomy and obviously a little more flashy. So I, designed the colors on on the MapleWorks kit, and I love that kit, man. I really do. If MapleWorks isn't around anymore, it's a shame because that is a really really great kit.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few of your guys' live recordings on like YouTube and stuff, and it just, I mean, that thing, it carries, you know, even in these huge venues, it just, the sound that thing produces, man, it sounds awesome.
I like that you said that because honestly, like every now and again, I don't. It's not like I sit and listen to our stuff all the
Yeah,
time. Like I really don't. But every now and again, I'll stumble across like a live recording, and I'll go back and I'll listen. I'm like, wow, like that drum sound is pretty damn good. And you have to give credit to the sound guy for doing that too. But those
yeah,
drums do sound good. They really do sound good up front. And even
yeah.
unmiked. I mean, if you don't mic them up, we're playing smaller places or whatever, and or if I'm just practicing on them, they still sound good. They really do.
And what cymbals were you bringing out, if you remember?
Well, so I don't know if that was on Candlebox, but I had signed a deal with Zildjian as well, and my I got a 14-inch Constantinople hats. I think I've got, and then for my crash cymbals, I use all rides. So
Oh
there's
wait,
like
it's really? That's cool.
yeah,
I,
yeah. Well, I was breaking the crash cymbals left and right. Like all my crash cymbals were breaking because I was really just beating the hell out of them. And when we were playing the smaller venues, rarely would I get an overhead mic. So, and I had in-ear monitors. So I've got my monitors in. I can hear the drums fine, but I could never hear the cymbals, and that was causing me to just really hit the cymbals way too hard. I mean, I was just overplaying my cymbals and breaking them.
mhm.
And it wasn't a big deal because Zildjian was really great about, okay, we'll send us your broken ones and we'll replace them. But then I just sort of got tired of doing that, and I thought, well, what if I just play something a little bit larger? There's somebody else that had done it. Obviously, I'm not the person doing this shit, but somebody had done it before me and suggested that I try. I forget what they are. So it's a 20-inch heavy ride and a 22-inch, maybe it's metal ride. I don't remember. But they're 20 and 22 respectively. They're both ride cymbals, and you can just wail on them, and they
Yeah,
sound great. Like they really sound good, especially if you hit them hard. Now, if you're not hitting them hard, it sort of defeats the purpose. So I
yeah, it
do
sounds
have
kind of
actual
weird.
crash cymbals.
Yeah,
I have actual crash cymbals if I'm going to play, and not mic'd up. But for the bigger venues, and when we were out with Kiss, we did Kiss Alive 35 in 2008, and we were playing arenas.
yeah.
They were absolutely vital to that tour because otherwise I wouldn't have heard them at all. And I don't think anybody else.
I mean, that's incredible. I think the live video that really stands out for me with you guys, I don't know what tour it was. It was an outdoor video, and I mean, you can hear those drums like you're in a studio. I mean, it just sounds so just like it's crisp. I mean, it's insane that you were able to
Yep.
get that kind of drum. I'm gonna need to try that with the ride cymbals later.
Oh
That
yeah,
might be.
man.
No, but that's
It's where they really hold up. I mean, like I said, especially if you don't have an overhead, if you don't have an overhead mic, like just your drums or mic, a kick mic and a snare, especially then because you're not going to even have any bleed from the crash cymbals and anything.
absolutely. So I know you guys you're back to playing shows somewhat frequently now, right? I know you did one with Sebastian Bach within the last year, maybe, or
That was a little while ago. It's honestly now everybody's got their day jobs and families, so the shows have really sort of dropped off.
yeah.
I actually teach music now, which is
Oh,
fun because
sweet.
yeah, it is pretty fun. I enjoy it. It's certainly not touring. Do I miss touring? Yeah, absolutely. if if the tour bus pulled up to my school and said, "Hey, we got to go," I would probably just walk out the door. Um, but no, it's a different type of audience, but at least it's still an audience. So I get my kicks that way.
Are you a
Um,
percussion
no, we
teacher, or
haven't. I'm sorry.
are you a percussion teacher?
I do teach percussion, but at my school I teach strings. Actually, I teach violin, viola, cello, and bass.
Oh, sweet, man.
Which
That's
is
so cool. I mean, I'm very much I believe that music teachers have one of the most important jobs there is. Because I mean, that's my drum teachers why, like in high school and middle school, is why I still play drums, and why I wanted to do music. I mean, do you find kids that are like that have the sort of like dreams to go and play music as a career?
100%. And honestly, like I never ever would have joined Cinder Road if it wasn't for my high school music teacher. I literally I credited him on the first CD. Like that guy was transformative for me. Like I said, I was a cellist. I had no designs on playing drums, but he recognized that there was a percussionist in me somewhere. And it was actually at a concert. It was I think our spring concert when I was a sophomore in high school, and he had a cymbal player that in the middle of the year moved to Florida. In fact, I think it was like 2 days before the concert, she just up and moved. It's like, I'm going to Florida. And he was like, well, who's playing cymbals in the concert? So I literally had just walked off stage after playing cello with the orchestra. And he goes, I need you to go play cymbals. And I was like, no, you don't. And he said, no, I do. I really need you to go play cymbals right now. I said, it's the concert. He was like, yeah, you can sight read. You're fine. And so he made me go and sight read the concert on cymbals. And that was it. The next year I was co-captain the drum line. And like I said, my friend who was a captain, that's when I auditioned for the band at one of his parties. So if he hadn't put those cymbals in my hand, I have no idea drums on my own. I certainly wouldn't have found the band.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. I see. I mean, just goes to show, man. I mean, high school music teachers are like the unsung champion of, I feel like, so many people's careers. And I love that. I love that you're back doing that, because it's such an important thing. If a student asked you advice on joining a band or forming a band or whatever, what do you think you would tell like a high schooler now? I mean, the scene is just so different than it was even 10 years ago.
That's a really good question. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is for me, was just to always be open to the next experience, be open to the next style, never stop listening. That's like super important.
Hmm.
You never stop listening, and I mean that like in every sense of the term. Never stop listening to other people, other musicians, the music they create, but also what they say. Like listen to everything, literally everything, because there's music in everything that we say, do, make, create. I think that's pretty
Absolutely.
important. It's the scene is totally different now. I mean, I feel pretty out of touch with it, as I think most people do that, you know, sort of hit the scene around the same time as Cinder Road did. Things changed drastically. You're just thinking about the fact that, yeah, I just went and saw the Rolling Stones in Vienna like 4 days ago,
Yeah.
and we went by the merch booth, and it took me a while to realize it, but there's no CDs. They don't
Oh,
sell
yeah.
music at the merch booth for the Rolling Stones. Like you can't buy music at a merch booth at a concert anymore, and that's sad
Yeah.
to me. Like that really is sad to me, because I feel like that's the whole reason why you're there, is for the music, right? So
So why can't you buy it? Yeah.
why can't I buy it? Like all I
No,
can buy is t-shirts, cups, and keychains. Like what about the music? And
I
so I
mean,
was thinking to myself, like, what's next? Because you should be able to come away from a concert with some bit of tangible music. If that means selling people like an MP3 there, or giving them a
something,
download
right?
link or something,
And
just something.
and I'm a huge, huge physical music collector and buyer, and like it's. I mean, if I don't, even if it was an album on Spotify, if I don't own it somehow, I feel like I only kind of like I feel like I don't fully get the album if I don't, have the CD sleeve to like read through and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and that's gone. It's like it's just people just gave up on it. I
Yeah.
mean, even on iTunes, is like you have the option to download the graphics. It's like, well, why would I not want that? Like, I just feel like that's something that I should just want.
Exactly,
It's part
exactly.
of the package.
No, I mean it's literally when you think about like a CD. I mean, whoever produced the CD paid to put that on there. Like it's not just there for no reason. Like clearly somebody intent like you wouldn't write your CD. What's the word, like when you
Liner
write like
notes.
a yeah, exactly, your liner notes. You wouldn't write those if you didn't want anybody to read them. Like it's I don't get that, but I mean I love that you said that because I'm very, very pro physical music for sure.
Yep.
So I was just talking to somebody the other day about sort of the rock revival and what we see with like Stranger Things with Metallica and all that. And I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you because I mean, you would know you're a teacher. Do you see like any kids sort of bringing up maybe bands that we like, or sort of like the rock sound? Do you see kids bringing that into school?
Yes. And yeah, I have to credit. I feel like I have to credit like the rock schools and like all those little independent music schools that it's guys like us or maybe guys like me, that are a little bit older and they they've had that experience and they learned a lot or gained a lot from it and want to make sure that it's at least available to kids today because with all the changes that are taking place, it's getting like you have to seek it out, right?
Hmm.
It used to be like what happened to me. You're going to a party and then someone makes you go and audition for a band and boom, you're in a rock band. Now it's like you got to sign up to take classes at, you know, rock
Hmm.
school, school of rock,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I feel like there's those schools and teachers and whatnot are sort of keeping it alive. And I do see that in my own classroom. Like I have this one kid who plays the cello, and I was totally shocked to find that this kid he's got perfect pitch, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Really neat. And I don't think he even knows how neat that is. But then, just through getting, making a relationship with the kid and talking to him a little more, I find out he's actually a really, really good guitar player. And the kid like shreds and he's playing all these 80s bands. It's like this happened way before you were even a thought, but he
Yeah.
can do it, he can play and he can keep up and he loves it. He's really into it. And there's other kids like him. There are other kids like him. They're just a little bit harder to find and they don't it's not as obvious, like when I was in high school, it's obvious who was in the rock scene and who wasn't. Now you can't tell. They're like
Yeah.
sleeper cells.
Yeah. Even at my school, I go to Belmont in Nashville now, going into my junior year here. But even here, it's like I feel like I'll wear like a band shirt out one day, and I'll see someone that I would have never like I wore a Seether shirt a few months ago to class, and I somebody like you would have never expected to be. I got multiple comments on people I would have never guessed knew who
Right.
Seether was. So it was awesome.
Yep.
So my
Well,
last couple, sorry, continue. Sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
So I was gonna say my last couple questions for you, and this is coming from the Cinder Road fan side of me. So I know you guys are back playing shows somewhat, and I wanted to know, are you guys thinking about doing some new music ever? And am I gonna potentially get a Nashville show at some point?
We've never given up on. It's not like we packed this up and said that's it, we're done. So that was never a thing. Um, we don't. The only reason why we're not playing more shows is because we can't come to an agreement on you know available time. It's so
Yeah.
difficult. I mean, I'm talking to you right now from Bulgaria, so I'm not even in the country.
Yeah.
So like, and we had gotten an offer to do some festival in Maryland. I think it was supposed to happen like right around now, and I had already planned my trip. So I told the guys like, well, I could potentially, turn around, come back, or do this, do that. But it was just about to cost so much more money than it was going to be worth for me. It was just a difficult thing to do. Um, so now it's just the scheduling thing that's keeping us from playing more than we are, which is really not a lot.
Mhm.
And as far as releasing new music, that's the same thing. It's about finding the time to sort of get together and try and write. And the band had tried to write music together before, and not saying that we can't do it or that we threw our arms up and said that's it. We had it. That wasn't the issue. It's just it's difficult because um, I mean, when you've got that many, five guys with all different tastes and attitudes towards the music, um, it can be amazing and you can create some really, really awesome stuff, or it can just be really stressful and slow going. And I think that's really it is the time that it takes to do that. it can be very daunting
Hmm.
and sort of off-putting. Maybe if we could just lock ourselves in a basement like 20 years ago and live on pizza and beer and just see what
Just crank it
happens, I
out.
think
Just
that'd be
crank it
great.
out.
But nobody has that kind of time.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think that's everyone's number one enemy right now is time. I think
Hmm.
so. I got one more question for you, and then I'll let you get back to Europe. But um, for people that might not have heard Cinder Road, I want to hear your top three songs that you would recommend, and I want to hear also if you were to recommend like one or two other Maryland bands, because I think Maryland's rock scene is probably the most underrated state, at least on the East Coast. I think it's such a strong scene in Baltimore. Um, so I'd love to hear some Cinder Road favorites, and then some other Maryland band like essentials in your opinion.
So my my personal favorite song from, I mean, I love Getting It Out, and I guess the reason why I love that song is because since it was the first single, it was the first time I heard myself on the radio in like multiple states, and it was great. It just walking around, you're in the mall and you hear yourself come on the radio,
That's so
over
cool.
the
That's so
speakers in the mall.
cool.
It was pretty ridiculous. And we cut a video for that. The video's on YouTube still, and I saw the video on MTV. Like that was big. So that'll always be, you know, a favorite. But my personal favorite song that we have is one, and there's nothing really special about it. It's just the song, the melody, drum part's pretty simple, but that's my personal favorite track. So if you haven't listened to that one,
Oh
it's one
yeah,
of
it's essential.
the and I also really like Drift Away. The weird thing about Drift Away is that when we first started playing that, I was like, this almost feels a little bit like country, but it's not at all. But I like the drum part that starts the track, and it's just fun to play. It's fun song to play. I already told you about Save Me. The heavier stuff is really fun to play too. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, but I guess those are my top in order. It's probably one, Getting It Out, Save Me.
I love it. I mean, those are three of the best. Like I mean, obviously you're in the band, so you would pick good ones. But I love those three. That's great.
And then bands from Maryland, God, and I don't even live in Maryland anymore. I live in New York City, so
Okay.
I don't know what's happening down there anymore. Obviously, SR-71, always a favorite band of ours and mine. And ooh, well, the Charm City Devils.
Yep.
That's again from SR-71, the drummer John Allen. That was his project or is his project. Um, and they're solid. He's a great singer. John's
Heck
got a
yeah.
great voice. Yeah,
I love it. I love
he's living up to those Phil Collins expectations.
it. Dude, I love that. Well, oh my gosh, Mac, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Likewise, yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. It's fun.
Heck yeah.